Welcome to the Federal Fiscal Year 2026 VOCA Grant Management Workshop. I am Vicky Nakagawa, the VOCA Grant Administrator with the Crime Victims Reparation Commission. We are excited to have you join us to learn more about effective grant management for your VOCA award. Today's session is to make sure your agency feels confident navigating requirements, managing budget, and maintaining compliance, all while continue to serve victims of crime across New Mexico. The purpose of today's workshop is to review each of the major areas of VOCA grant management, from contract, invoicing, monitoring, compliance, and civil rights. For effective VOCA grant management, it's best to have three key roles within each agency: the financial point of contact, an authorized official, and the program manager. Ideally, these should be three separate individuals. When each role is handled by a different person, it helps maintain strong internal controls, ensure checks and balance, and support smoother communication and accountability throughout the grant cycle. We will cover the following topics: CVRC Overview, VOCA Contract and Special Conditions, Financial Management, including budget revisions and match requirements, Grant Management requirements including time, travel, contracts, progress reporting, grant fraud, waste and abuse, and civil rights. In 1981, the New Mexico Legislature created the Crime Victims Reparation Commission, or CVRC, as an agency led by a governor-appointed 5-member commission to assist victims of violent crime. Our mission at the CVRC is to make sure that victims of violent crime do not experience financial hardship because of their victimization. Through our compensation department, we reimburse eligible expenses related to the crime, such as funeral cost, medical expenses, and loss of wages. We are considered the payer of last resort, meaning we cover only what remains after other sources like insurance have been used. In addition to compensation, the CVRC Grants Department supports victims and their families by administering both federal and state funds to programs like yours throughout New Mexico. Our goal is to provide you with the support, training, and technical assistance you need to be successful and to stay compliant with VOCA requirements. We also help your agency meet sub-grant responsibilities, such as reporting and invoicing. Within our department, we have a strong internal control system to show the federal government that funds are managed appropriately and transparently. You may interact with several members of our grant team throughout the year because invoicing and reporting assignment rotates. This rotation ensures that no single person handles the same task all the time, and multiple staff review each submission. Federal auditors appreciate this approach because it enhances internal oversight and improves compliance with the grant conditions. CVRC received the Victim Assistance Funding from the Office for Victims of Crime, or OVC. The Victim of Crime Act was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Reagan on October 12, 1984, establishing the Crime Victims Fund, which provides funds to states for victims' assistance and compensations program that offer support and service to those affected by violence crime. Funds are deposited annually into the Crime Victims Fund from criminal fines, penalties, forfeited bail bonds, and special assessment collected by the federal government. Crime Victims Fund dollars do not come from taxpayers. They come from people or corporations convicted of federal crimes. In July, CVRC issued a Request for Proposal, or RFP, for continuation application for VOCA funds. This process follows the State of New Mexico procurement regulations. Recommendations for continuation funding were presented to Commission in August and approved. Subgrantees should keep copies of their award letters on file. These are required for CVRC site visit and for federal audit. Your award letter specifies the amount awarded to your agency for this fourth and final year of continuation funding. CVRC uploads the fully executed contract to WebGrant for your record. CVRC reviews each applicant's most recent audit report in full. If we identify any material weakness or significant deficiencies, those agencies receive additional monitoring and technical assistance. Our goal is to ensure accountability, demonstrate fiscal responsibility to our federal partners, and support agencies in building long-term stability. If your award letter includes additional monitoring requirements, please make sure the appropriate staff in your agency are aware of them. Please remember, invoices must always include all required supporting documentation. We cannot process or reimburse any invoice missing the necessary backup. Finally, CVRC conducts in-person site visit with the subgrantees. If your agency is selected for a site visit, you will receive a pre-visit questionnaire to complete before the scheduled date. Next, we'll review your contract and highlight key special conditions. It is important that your agency read and understand all special conditions, as you will be expected to develop policies within your agency to adhere to these conditions. CVRC will upload your contract to WebGrant before the first invoice is due November 10th. On the first page of the contract, you can find the Federal Award Program, the Federal Award Number, the amount of your award, and your award cycle for federal fiscal year. It is October 1st to September 30th. As a reminder, VOCA operates on reimbursement-only basis, meaning your agency must first incur the expenses before requesting reimbursement from CVRC. Please take time to review all the conditions listed in your contract. Compliance is critical, as these requirements come from multiple sources: the Code of Federal Regulation, the Victim of Crime Act, the Office for Victim of Crime, the term of the federal award, and state law. When CVRC or federal auditors review your program, they are checking for compliance with these conditions. Now let's highlight a few. Like any other contract, this agreement can be terminated by either party. You are required to maintain all program and financial records, and these records must be made available for inspection by CVRC, the Department of Justice, and the Office for Victim of Crime if requested. The primary project components outlined in your proposal define your scope of work. That's what your activities and deliverables are measured against. Before hiring any staff with the VOCA funds, your agency must send CVRC the name and resume of the candidate recommended for those positions. All direct service staff are required to attend at least one CVRC training on victim compensation. You can find upcoming dates and registration link at the cvrc.nm.gov. Your agency also agreed to inform all potential eligible victims about the compensation and to assist them in completing and submitting their applications. Additionally, you must notify and assist the victim with VINE, the Automated Victim Notification System. If you'd like more information or need help with VINE, please contact our office. You are also required to display your agency's grievance policy in an easy, accessible location. That post must include CVRC's name and contact information as a funding agency. If a federal agency identifies your organization as a high risk, you must inform the CVRC immediately. In that case, we may add additional conditions or monitoring requirements to your funding. And finally, your agency must comply with all applicable sections of 34 U.S. Code 12291B, including Section 13, which prohibit discrimination. We'll talk more about the civil rights and non-discrimination later in this presentation. As part of your grant agreement, your agency agreed to comply with DOJ Financial Guide. You must also report any potentially duplicative funding to CVRC. In other words, if you are receiving other funds for the same purpose, we need to know about it. Out-of-state travel must be pre-approved by CVRC, and there must be no commingling of funds. That means your agency must have a clear, reliable accounting system that separates VOCA funds from all other funding sources. You also cannot supplant federal funds. That means you cannot reduce or redirect your state or local funds just because VOCA is covering similar costs. VOCA funds are meant to supplement, not replace your existing funding. And remember, payment under this grant is by reimbursement only. CVRC reimburse expense from the previous month, and invoices are due to our office by the 10th of each month. If the 10th falls on a weekend or holiday, invoices are due the next business day. Because of the state fiscal year requirement, June invoice may be due earlier, so please read all CVRC communication carefully for any update. There are also federal requirements about program income and a consultant rate limit that cannot be exceeded. Some shelter programs may use VOCA funds to provide food for victims. VOCA cannot support food or beverages for meeting, conference, or training. If you ever become aware of any credible evidence of fraud, waste, abuse, misconduct, or discrimination, you are required to report it promptly to both the Department of Justice and CVRC. We take these concerns seriously and we work with you to review the situation, provide technical assistance, or prevent it from happening again if needed. If an agency falls out of the compliance, CVRC or the federal government may classify it as high risk and place additional conditions or monitoring requirements on the grant. There are several important provisions regarding civil rights and non-discrimination, both for your staff and the client you serve. Applications must show how your program ensures access for individuals with disabilities and those with limited English proficiency and people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Agency may not compromise victim safety or recovery. Inaccessibility itself can be considered a risk to victim safety. These are areas CVRC actively monitors to ensure equitable and safe service delivery. Strong documentation is essential. Keep source records, things like receipt, timesheet, and invoices for at least 5 years. Whether you keep them electronically or in paper form, what matters is that they are complete, organized, and accessible. Make sure to follow your contract, meet your special conditions, spend only on allowable cost, and document everything. This foundation sets you up for success as we move into financial management. And remember, you must maintain all grant records for at least 5 years. Let's move on to financial management. This section focuses on how to handle VOCA funds responsibly, from invoicing and tracking expenses to following federal cost principles. Everything we cover here connects directly to your agency's fiscal accountability and grant compliance. Financial accountability is the foundation of your VOCA grant. Your organization must have a reliable accounting system, one that tracks all the project's expenses separately from other funding sources. It's also important to separate financial responsibilities. For example, the person who approves expense should not be the same person who reconciles the account. Make it a practice to reconcile your VOCA budget each month. That way, you can spot and correct errors early before they become bigger issues. Each month, you'll submit a reimbursement invoice to CVRC using official template. Be sure to include all required supporting documentation such as timesheet, receipt, and contract, and always double-check your calculation before you submit. Incomplete or late invoices can delay payment. So it's a good idea to establish a consistent monthly routine for preparing and submitting your invoice. Invoices are submitted through the grant management system web grants at nmcvrcgrants.com. Each invoice should cover the entire month from the first day to the last. For example, your first invoice will cover October 1st through October 31st. The next one will cover November 1st through November 30th. Your October invoice is due November 10th, and invoices continue to be submitted monthly. Each submission must include the accounting sheet, all supporting documentation. If an invoice is submitted late, reimbursement may have to wait until the following month. Template for the accounting sheet and the time and activity sheet are available on our website. CVRC staff will review your invoice carefully, checking each line item against your approved budget, your supporting documentation, and what entered in WebGrant. So make sure all three align before you submit. Also, keep an eye on your budget balance. No line item should ever go into negative after an expense is added. If you need to make adjustment, submit a budget revision request through WebGrant. And as always, if you have any question about your invoice or considering budget adjustment, contact the CVRC Grant Department. Some of the most common issues we see related to invoice include missing backup documentation, math error, and late budget changes. To help prevent these, always keep a checklist of what needs to be submitted with each invoice and confirm that your charges match your approved budget. And do not forget to document your match contributions. They are an important part of your fiscal accountability. As I mentioned earlier, federal regulation under 2 CFR 200-334 require that all financial and program records be kept for 5 years after the grant closes. You can store these records digital format as long as they are complete, accessible, and secure. Match requirement. One of the most common area of confusion for VOCA subrecipients. The goal is to expand resources and enhance your program by combining federal and local support. VOCA requires a 20% match. During the national emergency, OVC temporarily waived the match funding requirement. However, the waiver ended. For fiscal year 2025, the state VOCA gap funding was used to cover the required match. Match simply means your organization's share of total project cost. VOCA regulations require a 20% match, which can be provided through either cash or in-kind contribution. The goal is to expand resources and enhance your program using both federal and local support. The formula to calculate matching fund is federal amount requested divided by 4. If your federal VOCA amount is $30,000, 30,000 divided by 4 equals 7,500. So your federal fund is 30,000 and your matching fund is 7,500. Total program cost is 37,500. 37,500 times 20% equals 7,500. Match can be cash or in-kind. Cash match might be local or private funds used for the same project. In-kind match includes donated supplies, space, or professional services that directly support VOCA activities. All match must be necessary, reasonable, and well documented. You should always be able to show how each contribution was valued and used. Match must be tracked with the same care as your VOCA fund. Use consistent documentation, timesheet for volunteer, donation letters for space or materials, and records showing fair market value. Any new hire or volunteer working under your VOCA grant must complete the background check before they begin. As subrecipient, your agency is also required to use volunteers whenever possible to support your mission. Before any individual, employee, or volunteer interact with minor, your agency must complete suitability determination. This requirement applies to everyone, regardless of their role or pay status. Each person must have a name-based search of the public sex offender and child abuse registries, such as the Drew Chaudine National Sex Offender Public website. A fingerprint-based criminal history search covering at least 5 calendar years prior to the request. Now let's move into grant management requirements. This section covers your organization's day-to-day responsibilities, things like time and attendance tracking, travel procedures, contract, and audit preparation. Every staff member paid with VOCA funds must maintain accurate time and activity records. Timesheet should clearly show the actual hour worked on VOCA-related activities and be signed by both the employee and their supervisor. Keep these records for each pay period. They are often reviewed during the fiscal monitoring visit or audit. All travel charged to VOCA must follow either your organization's policy or the state of New Mexico's travel policy, whichever is stricter. Keep a receipt and supporting documents for mileage, meal, or lodging. And remember, out-of-state travel requires prior CVRC approval before any costs are incurred. When you use VOCA funds to hire contractors or consultants, you must follow the correct procurement process. This means written contract, documentation of a bid or quote, and justification for vendor selection. Always avoid conflict of interest and ensure that all services directly benefit the VOCA project. CVRC and our federal partners may conduct monitoring visit or audit at any time. To stay ready, keep your VOCA financial, program, and match documentation organized and up to date. When we say VOCA financial, we mean 3 types of documentation your agency must maintain. First, financial records. These include accounting sheet, invoice, receipt, payroll records, and any documentation showing exactly how VOCA funds were spent. Second, program records. This includes client data, activity logs, service reports, and case notes. Anything that documents the services your program provides under its approved scope of work. Third, match records. How your agency meet the 20% match requirement. Examples include volunteer hours, donated space, or non-federal cash contributions. All 3 records types should be organized, consistent, and accessible at all times. If an audit or site visit identifies a finding, meaning a problem, error, or area of non-compliance, it is important to work with CVRC as soon as possible to correct it. Now we've covered daily grant management tasks. Let's talk about reporting and monitoring. These requirements help CVRC and our federal partners ensure that VOCA funds are used effectively and that victims of crime receive the services they need. Next, we'll look at program progress report, financial reporting, and monitoring visit. Quarterly reporting is completed on the Office of Justice Program website using the Performance Measurement Tool, or PMT. Reports are due by the 15th of the month following the end of each quarter. For example, your first FFY2026 report covering October through December is due January 15th. CVRC will send a reminder email each quarter when it's time to submit. Keep in mind, the PMT system does not open until after the quarter ends, so you won't be able to enter data early. Each report must include a case history or success story showing how VOCA funds helped victims of crime. Your fourth quarter reports will include additional questions summarizing the entire project year. These may vary depending on updates from the Office for Justice programs. Submitting timely, accurate reports helps CVRC track your program's impact and ensures ongoing federal compliance and funding stability for New Mexico's victim services. Along with your program reports, it is important to keep your financial documentation current and ready for review. CVRC staff may conduct on-site or remote monitoring visits to confirm compliance and review your records. If any issues are noted, you'll receive a corrective action plan. Be sure to respond in a timely manner and maintain open communication with CVRC staff throughout the process. And remember, monitoring is not about punishment. It's about improving your grant management practice and helping your agency stay in compliance and good standing. Let's focus on fraud, waste, and abuse prevention. Protecting public funds and maintaining high ethical standards are core responsibility of every VOCA subgrantee. We'll also cover briefly on civil rights and ADA compliance. Let's begin with internal control and accountability. Fraud is not always intentional. Sometimes it starts with small mistakes, oversight, or shortcuts that lead to misuse or mismanagement of funds. Even an intentional error can result in fiscal or criminal consequences. That's why strong internal controls and clear staff responsibilities are essential. For example, one person should not handle every financial duty. If the same person opens mail, deposits checks, and writes the checks, there is too much control and not enough oversight. A healthy financial system separates duties, follows clear written policies, and includes checks and balances that prevent conflict of interest. For instance, if your agency decided to purchase training or consulting services from a family member or close friend, that could create a conflict of interest, even if the intent is good. All subgrantees must follow proper procurement procedures, meaning you must comply with state law and your agency's own written policies and procedures. Even if your agency receives unrestricted funds that do not require procurement rule, if your agency has a procurement policy, you must still follow it. Applying your policies across all funding sources shows that you are a responsible steward of public funds and promotes your agency's integrity and accountability. All VOCA-funded programs must comply with the federal civil rights law, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and the American Disability Act. That means no discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, creed, or disability. All staff should complete annual civil rights training and keep certificates in your grant file. CVRC may request these during the monitoring. At the core of these laws are equity and access. Civil rights guarantee that every person is treated with fairness, respect, and dignity, regardless of their background or life circumstances. By ensuring services are equitable and accessible, your agency helps advance the VOCA mission, supporting all victims of crime without challenges. Let's review key areas. Non-discrimination in service delivery. Victims must have equal access to services regardless of race, color, national origin, creed, sex, age, disability, or limited English skill. Equal employment opportunity. Agencies must provide fair hiring, promotion, and accommodations for disabilities. Civil rights training and policies. Staff must be trained, written policy maintained, and a civil rights coordinator assigned. Accessibility and language access. Programs must be accessible, arrange interpreters when needed, and share information in different languages. Accessibility is not optional. It is an essential part of ensuring victim safety and trust. Thank you for joining the FFY2026 VOCA Grant Management Workshop. Please complete the post-award workshop survey. For questions or technical assistance, contact Vicky Nakagawa or Donna Richmond, Grant Bureau Chief. We appreciate your commitment to serving New Mexico's victims of crime.